So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Samuel Reales, and I am based in Bogota. I am the Education USA advisor here in Colombia, Bogota. Education USA is a network for students who want to go to the States to study. So any question that you have or any way that we can support you in the process, we would be more than glad to help you around. Remember that we have centers all over the world. There are 400 centers that can give you information. This time, today, we have our last but not least session on the LLM webinars that we've been having for 2 weeks. Very successful. Thank you for being here, everyone. I would like to introduce you to the universities that we have today. We have Boston University, University of Maryland, Vermont Law School. Sorry, I'm reading too fast. Yes, University of California, Davis, University of Cincinnati, and Indiana University. Okay, so throughout the presentation, you can actually write your questions. And remember that 15 minutes before the session is over, we are going to post a link where you can go to a different room, to a different kind of meeting, where you can ask questions to the representatives that you have here today. So without further ado, I would really like to thank you all for being here, for giving us this time, and for all the attendees that we have today. Welcome. If you have any questions, remember you can type them over there, and just make sure that you copy the links of the meetings, because at some point when we finish the meeting, you are not going to have access to those links. So remember, copy them, and if you want to sort of go to a specific meeting with one of these universities, you're going to be able to join them in a meeting afterwards. So welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for being here.
Great, thank you. Thank you everybody for joining us. Tonight we're going to talk about competitive personal statements, letters of recommendation, and writing samples. And you have the wonderful benefit of having a lot of admission professionals here to share with you today. So as part of this plan, we have broken it up. You'll have teams of schools presenting with you, and then we're going to do a brief introduction to our different schools that we represent, and we invite you to come then join us in the Zoom rooms after the presentation. So without further ado, my colleagues presenting on personal statements.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for starting your weekend talking about personal statements and the competitive application process for the LLMs. My name is Maureen Tracy Leo. I'm the Associate Director at the Boston University School of Law, and I'll let my colleague here introduce herself as well.
Hi, I'm Sumitra Kogel. And actually, I have Patricia with me. I'm honored to have her, one of our alumni today. You can discuss with her about our program later in one-on-one Zoom sessions. And I'm with University of California, Davis School of Law, and I'm with Global Outreach. You can go to the next slide, please. So I'm going to talk about what is a personal statement. Actually, this is one of my favorite things to read when I see student applications. And so today, I'll give you a little bit of insight. What is this personal statement? This is an essential component of your LLM application. And this is a written statement, a story. This is your story. This is not your parents' story or grandfather's story. This is, please make sure not your friend's story. Make sure this is your own story. And this is a picture. You are, as a person, a student and professional and scholar, you're painting this picture of you to the admission committee. So this is, since personal statements are very personal, there's no a particular structure or a way, but there's always recommendations that you will hear throughout this presentation. So please make sure that many of the law schools require this document, the personal statement, and think about this is as you interview. Many schools may not able to interview you one-on-one. So think about, and this is a place for you to brag. So many cultures bragging may be not encouraged, but if one thing to remember from the personal statement part of the presentation, it is completely okay to brag about yourself in this personal statement. Next.
So I often get asked, what do we as admissions professionals want to see when we are reading a personal statement? And we get hundreds and hundreds of applications. So we read through a lot of these. So it's important to kind of stand out and present yourself as different from other people. And what makes you different? Because you're you. So you should talk about who you are. We're looking for students who are competent, who are mature, who are engaged, who have a sense of what they want to learn and what they could bring to our law school community. And of course, we want personal statements, as we'll talk about in a little bit, to have structural integrity and to be grammatically correct and be edited properly. But essentially, this is your opportunity to tell us who you are outside of your resume. And so the fact that you are here on a Friday night, listening to us talk about the admissions process means that you are engaged, you are eager, that you are curious. And so we want that to kind of come out through your personal statement so that you can sell who you are in your application process. You can advance to the next one. Yep.
So there are kind of three sections. What make it a great personal statement. So it's a personal background, academic background, and professional background. So if you think of your personal statement into kind of three different sections, take this mental note. It's personal section, academic, and professional background. And also, I encourage you to think about this three things in past, present, and future. So when you think about your personal background in the past, for example, you can talk about in the personal statement, what motivated you to become a lawyer, or what motivated you to study, go to law school. So that's your past. Who inspired you? That would be in the past context. And think about, so I would encourage these three things, personal, academic, and professional. Think about each. Maybe try to write a paragraph of past and present and future. So let's just another example, academic. So what are your academic background in the past, and what is your current academic things you're doing in the present? If you're doing anything, it doesn't matter that even professional development. And also in the future, what you want to do, like such as wanted to pursue a LLM graduate degree. So I hope you get the point. And also, one of the main things that I wanted to give you today, one of the important tips, be authentic. Because we, the admission officers here, see a lot of personal statements. And if you, most important thing to come out of the personal statement is be you, just like my colleague Maureen said, and be authentic, be yourself. And when admission officers, they have read thousands of these personal statements, they can tell the difference that this statement came from somewhere from the internet, or this is real you. So yeah, next, please.
Well, I hate to be a downer, but I get to talk about what not to do. So there are certain things that we really need to be really careful. And in life, it's really hard to be perfect. And we generally don't need to put that kind of pressure on ourselves. But when you are writing a personal statement, or when you are writing a resume, you should feel that pressure. It really needs to be correct. It needs to be grammatically perfect without editing mistakes. You owe that to your application. You spend money on your application fee. You spend a lot of time in getting your materials correctly together. Make sure that you edit that very, very carefully and a number of times, because we're looking for that. It shows seriousness of purpose and degree to attention to detail, which matter to us. Don't restate your resume chronologically. We've already read your resume. It's probably great, but we don't want to read that again in your personal statement. It should read like a narrative. Don't be too personal in your personal statement. I have read things I didn't want to know. I don't want to know about your heartache romantically. I don't need to know very personal information about your family story. unless it speaks to resilience or an academic or professional goal. If you're kind of thinking, is this too much, then have someone else read it and see if you're oversharing, because it's a professional work product, so it should paint you in a professional light. Don't try to be something you're not. You don't have to be an expert in mergers and acquisitions. Many of you are just starting your career or in your mid part of your career. It's fine to approach the application process just where you are. It's good to have aspirations, but you don't need to oversell, nor should you undersell. You know, just be who you are. And finally, I just included this little paragraph here because it's indicative of some of the things I have seen over the years. So this applicant starts off by saying how impressed they are with the faculty at Boston University School of Law. Terrific. I'm the reader at Boston University School of Law. And then the applicant goes on to tell me how eager the applicant is to begin their studies at the American University, Washington College of Law. Terrific, except for I'm not at the American University. We know you're applying to many universities. You should. I mean, we all want you to go to our universities, but you should apply many places. But be careful that that personal statement reflects the faculty or geographic destination that you actually want. Notice the accuracy here. The author talks about it being in Chicago. It's not in either city. One is in Washington, one is in Boston. It just goes to the editing point. But overall, to end on a happy note from this negative point, you know who you are. Just tell us who you are. You have so much to bring, and we just want to get to know you. All of us here are interested in bright, curious learners, and your personal statement is an opportunity for you to tell us just who you are and what you'll bring to the experience. So thank you. That about wraps up our personal statement conversation, and we'll move on now to letters of recommendation.
Great, thank you. Yes, so the second part of the presentation is going to be about letters of recommendation. So all of the law schools that you're considering are going to be requiring some kind of letter of recommendation, but it will depend on the number and the type of recommendations based on the school that you're applying for. So we're going to talk in general, broad strokes, about some tips of letters of recommendation. So this is going to be presented by myself, Mickey Hamster. I'm the Assistant Dean of Graduate Programs at Indiana University Robert H. McKinney School of Law. And my colleague here.
Hi, I'm Mika Clincy, and I'm the Admissions Manager for the LLM program at the University of Cincinnati College of Law in Cincinnati, Ohio.
All right, so big time to decide. Who are you going to ask to write your letter of recommendation? Is it going to be Prime Minister Justin Trudeau? Or is it going to be law professor Carrie Hagan from Indiana University? So I get this question a lot. Who should I ask to write my letter of recommendation? And a lot of my students think that they should ask based on rank. Clearly, if you knew Justin Trudeau, that would be pretty impressive. But if the reason you know Justin Trudeau is because your father's first cousin was a neighbor to his mother-in-law, that's not going to make a good letter of recommendation. In which case, your trusty law professor here, who might have had you in contracts or property, would have been the better choice. So let's talk about that and why you want to be careful about who you select as your reference writer. Number one, the number one thing you want to keep in mind is choosing someone who knows your legal skills best. So there's a range of legal skills, right? Legal writing, legal research, legal analysis, communication skills. Think about the people in your academic career or your professional life, if you've done externships or internships, or if you practiced for a while, those types of people who have seen your work. They might have been supervising your work. They might have been grading your work if they were a professor. These are the reference writers that you're going to want to seek out. So again, the status of the reference writer is less important. I have received letters of recommendation from presidents of organizations or very important Supreme Court justices. However, if it's only a paragraph long and it's very clear to me that the reference writer doesn't really know my candidate, that letter of reference is going to go on the bottom of the stack. I'm going to be searching through the application to find one that can speak to the specific skills of my candidate. So again, former professors, colleagues, they don't need to be necessarily older than you. But they should not be a family member. Even if you were lucky enough to work at a firm with a father or a cousin, it would be best if you choose someone that is not related to you. And again, I would also avoid new acquaintances. If you just began an internship and you've only been there for a month, it's possible you've done some really amazing work, but I would talk to that reference writer before you ask them, just to make sure they know enough about you to be able to write a strong letter of recommendation. So another thing I like to do is help my candidates prepare their reference writer. In the United States, this is a standard application. This is a standard piece. So a lot of students, by the time they get to law school, have done this multiple times. But the first time that you are asking a reference writer to write you a letter, it might be helpful for you to give them a couple tips. So in general, I want you to think about the time. Think in advance of how much time that reference writer is going to need to prepare the letter. If your application is due next week and you have not contacted a reference writer, you have not given them very much time to prepare a good letter of recommendation. So I usually recommend that students contact those reference writers as soon as they start downloading the application materials. In my personal opinion, you should give reference writers at least 4 weeks, at least 1 month. Particularly if this is a working judge or a working attorney at a firm that's very busy, they might have other duties and responsibilities that are going to keep them from being able to write you a good letter of recommendation. So give them sufficient time. Number 2, directions. Give them clear instructions on the formatting. Is this a letter of recommendation that has to be written in a certain letter format? Does it need to be addressed to somebody in particular? How are they supposed to submit it? Are they supposed to sign and seal it in a physical envelope and put it in the postal mail? Or are they going to be uploading it to something like the LSAC? Lots of different ways to submit letters of recommendation. So make sure you give them specific instructions on how to do that. You don't want any delays after that letter of recommendation is written so that it's going to the right place. Be sure to give them that due date. I like to give my letters of recommendation writers advance notice, but also calendar reminders, maybe 1 week out from the date that it's due. Maybe you want to touch base with them just to make sure they don't have any final questions or anything to do with directions about how to submit it. Finally, guidance. I think it's critical that you share your personal statement and your resume with your reference writer so it's really clear that they know what you're applying for. Sometimes I've received reference letters written to a totally different program, speaking to the candidate's ability to do well in an MBA business program, for example. That might have been the mistake of your reference writer. They might not have been very careful. Maybe they've written you multiple letters of recommendation or they're using a template. But again, by preparing your letters of reference, or by preparing your reference writers to write these letters, you can give them a lot of good guidance on what to say. Finally, I like this final tip about how to prepare them. Usually when I submit a question and I'm asking someone to write a letter of recommendation, I usually like to remind my reference maybe of a couple things that we did together. I might say something like, I think this school's intellectual property program is pretty interesting. It would be great if you could speak to the fact that I worked on a case under your tutelage, or I was in your intellectual property law class and I wrote this research paper. Any little tips that you want to help to give your reference writer, I find that really refreshing and helpful when I write letters of recommendation for other people. Just as a reminder of some of the work that they did. You might want to even upload a research paper that you submitted to a professor. Again, helping them out a little bit is great. In no way should you be writing the letter of recommendation that the reference writer will be signing, but I fully encourage you to have a deep conversation about the school that you're looking at, about the program that you want to do, because that is going to shape how that reference writes that letter.
So moving on to the content of the reference letter, something that Mickey just talked about. I got a letter yesterday, and the writer said that the applicant had worked in their organization, but she didn't know her. And right away, right on the bottom of the stack. So not knowing the person is a big no-no. So the content, you want to make sure that your reference writer is talking about you both as a professional and as a person. So your professional skills and also your character, who you are personally. So If your writer is a professor, a former professor, or a supervisor, they're able to talk about your legal skills, your analytical skills, your thinking skills, your writing skills. They've had you in the classroom, or if they're supervising your professional work. For me, really important is seeing an example of this, having the writer talk about something you worked on under them or with them, or some research you did with them, or even a paper that you wrote if it's a professor and you're applying straight out of law school to an American LLM program. And then as far as character and who you are personally, we like to see what kind of leadership skills you have, what kind of advocate you are, if there are service projects you've worked on, or if you've done some pro bono legal work. And again, examples of these things are really important so that the writer can speak to things that they believe about you and why you'd be successful in an LLM program based on experiences they've actually had with you. The last thing I touch on is relationships. So again, as we've already discussed, your relationship with the writer should be in the letter. I should be able to just see right away how they know you. And then also if they know anything about the relationship of you, who you are now, to what you'd like to do with your career, where you're heading. We get that in your personal statement, but if the writer of your reference letter knows something about that and can speak to it, that's also really helpful. So next we have a couple examples. I picked not necessarily the worst and the best examples, but a pretty good and a pretty bad one based on how short it was. So we can rush through it kind of here. So are the students able to unmute themselves and interact with this at all? Samuel?
What was the question again? Whether students can actually interact now?
Yeah, are they allowed to unmute and interact if I ask them some
No,
questions about this?
They are not. No.
Not, okay. All right, so I'll just go through it. So my first example is a poor example. I'll just read it quickly. I'm very pleased to recommend this student for admission into your respected university. Student was an active and highly optimistic student during the courses I taught him. He is also highly active in extracurricular activities and is a member of different associations and teams in the university. This student's personal characteristics have proven promising for living abroad. He is outgoing, adventurous, positive, friendly, and energetic. I have full confidence that the student will be suitable and fulfill the requirement of master program in law at your university. So this isn't necessarily a terrible letter. I mean, it's recommending the student for admission, but it really doesn't tell me anything specific to the student. It could have been written about almost anyone. And it doesn't tell how the person, it says they taught him some courses, so it is a professor, but doesn't speak at all to communication skills, writing skills, analytical skills. It's just kind of very broad brushed positive. So it doesn't really help me get to know who the student is. So the next slide is a better example. The very first thing it says is, I'm pleased to recommend the student. I was her staff attorney supervisor in the family law unit during her internship. So right away we see what the connection is with the person and the writer and how they know her. I highly recommend the student for your program. She's diligent, hardworking, and professional. She displayed a strong commitment to zealous advocacy in her clerkship at Legal Services, where she provided much needed legal assistance to the indigent population of our community. Her work ethic and dedicated approach to legal work would make her a unique and excellent addition to any institution or program. So there we have an example of the kind of work she did, what kind of work the person knows her from, and what kind of result she got from. And we also see some of what her interests are and what kind of work she was doing, more than you can just see in a resume line. Then last it says she's a fast learner and an engaged team player, flexibility, communication skills, drafting, pleadings. So it just gives you a fuller picture of who the person is, both professionally and with her personal skills. So the last thing is, some schools will offer a form. So if you are having trouble getting reference writer to write a whole letter, or if they don't have very good English, maybe they don't speak English that well, you could ask for a form. So this is one example of a form. The person can just fill this out without having to write a narrative letter. So that is an option. So you can ask your schools that you're applying to if they have a form to make it a little easier for your reference writers.
Sorry, you would think that in a world of being virtual for over 6 months, I would be used to unmuting myself, but I'll just restart. My name is Vicky Godinez, and I am the admissions counselor at the University of Maryland, Francis King Carey School of Law, and I will be presenting alongside Katie, and I'll let her introduce herself.
I'm Katie Merrill. I'm the Director of Admissions at Vermont Law School.
We're both going to be talking a little bit about writing samples, the TOEFL and the IELTS exam, and then Katie will be talking about interviews and what you can expect if you're asked to do one. So to begin with writing samples, applicants are sometimes given the option to submit a statement that addresses their English proficiency along with writing samples. So sometimes if you wish to waive the TOEFL or the IELTS or another English standardized exam, you're going to be asked to submit a writing sample to prove that you are proficient in the English language. This is optional for most schools, and some examples of writing samples are memos, briefs, journal articles, really any article of writing that you are proud of. You want to make sure that it is following a neat format throughout, that it is 5 to 15 pages in length, so that the admissions committee can really see that you are understanding of the English language and that you can succeed in the program that you are applying for. Most importantly, you do want to make sure that before you submit your writing sample that it is error-free. So aside from yourself proofreading it, I would encourage you to have somebody else designated to reading this article of writing before you submit it, because more often than not, what happens is your eyes begin to gloss over words, and then that's when you'll start overseeing little typos or grammatical errors. So to avoid that from happening, make sure that you are having somebody else proofread it alongside you as well. And depending on the writing sample that you present, the admissions committee may or may not agree to waive your TOEFL or IELTS exam. And now I will just touch a little bit on what the TOEFL and the IELTS exam are. So to begin with the TOEFL, if you are a non-native English speaker and you're thinking about studying in an English-speaking country, you may have heard about a test called the TOEFL. The TOEFL is currently the most popular English language assessment test, and it is primarily used by universities as part of the admissions process. TOEFL stands for Test of English as a Foreign Language, and it is a standardized test that measures a test taker's mastery of the English language. As far as how long it is divided into 4 sections: reading, listening, speaking, and writing, and it takes about 4.5 hours to complete. And as far as how it is scored, it is out of a total of 120 points, and each section is out of 30 points. And it's important to keep in the back of your head that your score is valid for up to 2 years. So you really want to make sure that you're scheduling your exam in alignment so that your score is still valid for your desired enrollment year. And for availability, you can take the test as many times as you would like, just not within 12 days of each other. So hypothetically, if you wanted to, and I wouldn't imagine that you would, you can take the exam twice in 1 month, one in the beginning and one in the end. But I don't think anybody wants to do that. But it's just good to know of the options that are available to you. And the reading passages in the TOEFL, they use formal and academic language and high-level vocabulary rather than casual or conversational English. So you really want to make sure that you're preparing yourself adequately to succeed on this exam on your first go-around. Just hop over to the next slide. Thank you. So now the IELTS. IELTS stands for the International English Language Testing System, and this exam assesses your abilities in listening, reading, writing, and speaking, and it is much shorter than the TOEFL. It is about 2 hours and 45 minutes to complete as opposed to the 4.5. And instead of being out of 120 points like the TOEFL, this exam is using a 9-band scale. So if you were to get a band score of a 1, that means that you're a non-user of the English language and that you probably have some studying to do. But if you get a band score of a 9, then you are considered an expert. And for availability, there are more than 1,600 locations worldwide, including more than 50 locations in the USA. So it's important to see what test sites are available closest to you, just for convenience purposes. And there are 2 types of IELTS exams. There's an academic and a general training. So the listening and speaking sections of these exams will be the same, but depending on which one you choose to take or which one your school requires you to take, the reading and writing sections will differ depending on which one you chose. So for instance, if you chose academic, the reading and writing sections would consist of vocabulary that you can expect in a higher education setting or during your coursework. Whereas if you chose a general training, more often than not, the reading and writing section will be tailored to the vocabulary that is most often used in a work environment and in your everyday job. And that was what I had to say about writing samples and the TOEFL and the IELTS. And now I'm just going to pass the reins along to my colleague, Katie.
Hi, all. Thank you very much. This is my favorite part of the application process. I read your personal statements, and so I have an idea of who you are. And then your letters of recommendation, I have an idea of what your professors and your supervisors think you are. And then I look at all your transcripts and your tests, and I can kind of build a picture. But the interview process is, I feel, a chance where I can really get to know you. I really do connect with you through the personal statement, but this is somewhere I can establish that personal connection. At Vermont Law, the interview process is very important to us because we're a small community. And here's just a few suggestions. My first suggestion is prepare. You're having an interview. We tend to ask similar questions. Why do you want to attend Vermont Law School? Why do you want to attend an American law school? What was your experience at your home law school? That's my favorite question because I'm always interested in your home experience. And one of my favorite questions is, and I asked it today earlier, I asked a student, what are the big issues on your campus that the students are getting excited about? Or what is the big issue at your firm? Or what are you experiencing in the law? So, and it's usually goes deep into the conversation. Practice. Very, very, very important because through this interview, I'm also trying to determine your language speaking skills, and I'm trying to get to know you. So practice with your English speaking friends, colleagues, family. Just have a good week of English only so that when you come into the interview, you're relaxed. Bring specific questions. I love to hear about myself, my law school. We're nationally known for our environmental law program. Today I had a few students ask me about energy questions. I love that. And I love it when it's also geared to what you want to do. So maybe you're researching a project and then you say, oh, I understand that Professor Jones is researching renewable energy in New Zealand. How do you think I could make this happen in my country? So anything like that to engage the conversation. The best part is be yourself. Bring the best you. Showcase, and this relates right back to the personal statement. Showcase yourself as professional, mature, poised, be comfortable, confident, smile, and also for the interviews, do dress up. I've had some interviews where, you know, be mindful of your background, all of that. And it's a great process. And really, honestly, most law school professionals, we want to connect with you. And this is how we do it. We do it through the whole application. And this is just I guess, the icing on top of the cake. But that's all I have. So I don't know if we want to do questions. Who wants to pass on? Oh, here's our introductions.
Yeah, I see there's some questions in the Q&A, so colleagues, feel free to jump in and type in answers there while we're doing the short introductions. But we're going to each take about 3 minutes to introduce you a little bit to our programs, but we want to make sure that we also get your substantive questions answered as well. So we'll try and keep it very brief here, and then we will also open the questions up at the end as well. So Maureen, Boston is up. I think you are, there you go.
I'm sorry, I was having a double screen mute issue. Welcome to 2020 and Zoomania. We certainly spent enough time on here. Thrilled to talk to you about our university. So Boston University is located in beautiful Boston. We're considered the intellectual capital of the United States for good reason. There are over 250,000 students in Boston. So if you're young and smart, you will fit right in Boston. It is a terrific place to be as a student. We have 4 signature LLM programs. We have a general course of study in the American Law program. That's our biggest program in a non-COVID year. It's usually about 120 students. Our intellectual property program is smaller and specialized. You shouldn't do it unless you love IP and you've done a lot of intellectual property before coming. Graduate tax program and the banking and financial services program is specific to those disciplines. And they're both have been around a long time and are well established. We have specialty certificate and online programs for students. We also have a 2-year English language certificate program. If you've understood this webinar well, you probably don't need it. But if you don't feel like your English is very strong or you want an additional year to get embedded with the language, it's a great program. Some particular strength areas of the program are bar readiness. A lot of our students will want to take the bar exam. We have special classes for that. We also allow a JD transfer option. It's not automatic, but if some students want to transfer to the JD program, that is a possibility. We also have a very, very good professional development programming office that deals with everything from resumes through interviewing, through networking opportunities to access the law school. But if there's one thing I think that's really most special about BU, aside from our international brand and the 224,000 alumni around the world from over 100 countries who've attended our university, it's just the connections and the community that we build with our students. So the best part about BU by far are our students. We care a lot about the students who come here and we want to make sure that their experience is the best in their lives. So I'm happy to talk to all of you about it in the breakout room, and thank you to my colleagues that I got to go first to talk about my university because I happen to be first in the alphabet, but they're all equally terrific.
Hi again, this is Mika from Cincinnati Law. Our law school is one of the nation's top social justice law schools. We have clinical experiences and centers in innocence work, which is in criminal law. We have one of the strongest, and staff attorneys gotten 30 wrongly convicted persons out of prison in the last several years, and that represents about over 500 years of people being wrongfully imprisoned. We have an international human rights clinic where our students are able to work on the Human Rights Quarterly, which is the top human rights journal in the country and in the world. We have an entrepreneurship and community development clinic and an intellectual property clinic, among several others. And those are ones that our LLM students have all participated in and thoroughly enjoyed and talk about as one of their favorite experiences of law school. So we have also fellowships in the Innocence Project Clinic and in the Human Rights Program. We do offer a business law concentration. Our LLM is a general U.S. legal studies LLM, but you can focus your coursework and your interests around what is interesting to you and what you would like to do with your career. We have many practical work experiences, Ivy League trained faculty, and our LLM program specifically is intentionally small. It's a very collegial environment where you interact with many JD students and form close relationships with professors and alumni. Cincinnati itself is beautiful located right in the Midwest. It's an affordable city. It has a good mix of big city amenities with small town closeness, networks of lawyers who are, a lot of them, alumni of our university and happy to help you in any ways that they can. And our university and our city are very friendly. If you know anything about the Midwest, it's a very people-forward area of the country. And just like Maureen said about Boston, we value our students, and you are our favorite part of what we do.
Thank you. So I'm Mickey Hamstra. I'm Assistant Dean of Graduate Programs at Indiana University, which is also located in the Midwest. So we are called Hoosiers in Indiana, Hoosier Hospitality, if you've heard of that before. Same thing kind of applies. I think we are, all of us here on this call are drawn to this type of work because we value international students and we want you to be a part of our institutions because of what you bring. You enrich our student body by your presence. So a couple unique things about Indiana University McKinney School of Law. We are the only law school located in the capital city of Indianapolis. So that's very unusual. Normally in a capital city where you have the courts, both state and federal, lots of multinational corporations headquartered, normally you would have a lot of law schools in that area. We are the largest law school in Indiana, but we're the only one in the capital city. So that's really great for student externships. A lot of international students tend to choose McKinney if they have that practical externship, internship focus in mind. It's not uncommon that my students would do multiple externships. We have a dedicated externship with the Indiana Supreme Court. They do an externship there. We also have a lot of different multinational corporations located in Indianapolis, like Cummins, Lilly, NCAA. You can see my student here who did an externship there. So there's a lot of emphasis on practical skills, working and networking while you're a student in our program. We do have all four of the law programs offered, the JD, the LLM, MJ, and the SJD, which is the terminal law degree that you would be eligible for after you complete an LLM with us. We also have an accelerated two-year JD program, similar to some of the other schools, where you can transfer credit from your LLM program as well as credit from your undergraduate LLB program into our JD program to make that a fast track option for you. We can start in the fall or the spring, so you can either choose August or January as a start date. We have very generous need and merit-based funding. Because we are a public institution, we already have a very low tuition and we're in the Midwest, so we don't have a very expensive cost of living. That in combination with up to 40% scholarships make it very affordable for international students in Indianapolis. Also, because we're the largest law school, we have a day program and a night program, and you can choose to take classes during any of those times. You can take day, night, online, short courses, summer courses. Again, it's designed to allow you to do working during the day, externships and internships, so that then you can take classes at night or vice versa. We also have the great benefit of being steps away from the court system. So we have experts who teach in our program. We have Indiana Supreme Court justices, judges of the Court of Appeals, and even the Attorney General has taught in our program. So a lot of good access to important alumni in the area who are interested in getting to know you and your expertise that you bring from your countries. We do have 7 different specialties, including, as far as we know, we're the only law school has a relationship with the World Trade Center in our city. So we have an integrated internship with that institution, in which case you would be doing research on trade between your home country and Indiana. And we've had some really interesting opportunities. A graduate recently was hired by the World Trade Center in Shanghai once she graduated because of her work when she was a student at Robert H. McKinney School of Law. So a lot of great things that I would love to talk to you in more depth about our school School, and I hope to see you in the Zoom after the presentation.
Hi everyone, my name is Sumitra Kugel and I'm with University of California, Davis School of Law. We are part of the prestigious University of California system. We have 10 other universities in our system. And the University of California, Davis, we are located in Davis, California, small town, about 60,000 people, and about 30,000 of them are students. So you can see it is truly a college town. We are one of the best college towns that we have ranked in different ranking systems. And we do have a general LLM program and a 1-year program, but then if you want, you can make it to a 2-year LLM program. And also you can, these are some of the areas that you can concentrate, have a concentration. It's business law, criminal law, and procedures, and environment and natural resource law, healthcare law, human rights, intellectual property law, and international law, public interest law. So in our law school, we do also have a JD program. So we have a LLM to JD option if you're interested. And that seems to be a recent kind of a trend. The students have been asking about it. And we are located, city of Davis, we're located close to Sacramento, which is California's capital, state capital. So we do have, just like Nikki mentioned, that we have the privilege to work with the state capital. And also our law students have opportunity to work at the state capital doing internships, clerkships, externships. And also that the city of Davis, a safe city, very intellectual city. And we are, again, many of my colleagues said students are a top priority. And for our law school too, we try to do a lot of one-on-one advising and student services, career services, help you network with other colleagues, other faculty, and other students. And I think that any of these LLM program, I think you should think about what's best for you and what's best fit for you. And also, I can tell you that most of these law programs have hundreds of students or even smaller programs, a lot of diversity. You can make friends from all over the world. So I think that's one of my favorite things, going through a very diverse program. You can make friends and you can keep those friendships forever. So I invite you to come and talk to me and our alumni, Patricia. I'm honored to have her today. And I wanted to say thank you so much to Education USA for hosting this excellent webinar. And thank you so much for joining us, all the students. Thank you.
Okay. Hi everyone, me again. My name is Vicky and I'm going to briefly talk about the LLM program that we offer here at the University of Maryland. And to begin, I just wanted to say that we are one of the oldest law schools in the United States, and we are located in downtown Baltimore, Maryland, which puts us in the second largest legal market in the country. We are just walking distance from state and federal courts, a 40-minute train ride away from DC, 90 minutes from Philadelphia, and 2.5 from New York City. So getting an internship and an externship that's very accessible during your LLM career is very doable because we are right in the hub, as we like to call it. Aside from our location, We do have over 200 courses in our curriculum, and you have the option of doing a more general LLM or of choosing one of our specialty programs. Our specialty programs are listed right here at the top, and they are a commitment of 17 to 18 credits, which leaves you with flexibility in your schedule to take electives in other areas that might interest you as well, since it does take 26 credit hours to satisfy the LLM requirements, which is done in one full-time year of academic study. I did want to also touch on the communal feel that we offer. We are a smaller law school in comparison to other institutions. Our student to faculty ratio is 6:1. So if you're somebody who strives in that more intimate setting, then that's definitely something to highlight about Maryland Carey. You have the opportunity to work individually with a peer mentor, an academic advisor, and a career advisor. Your academic advisor is your primary resource to making sure that you're meeting your desired outcomes, whether that be sitting for the bar exam, the Maryland, DC, New York, or California bar, or fulfilling one of our specialty programs. They are your resource in making sure that you are eligible to do that and to meet those outcomes. Your career advisor works with you individually to make sure that your resume is sharp and that you're taking full advantage of networking opportunities that we host throughout the year, and that you know the opportunities that are readily available to you either in the city of Baltimore or in the overall DMV area. Now, I just wanted to touch on tuition, since that is something that students typically always ask about. We are a state school, and we have a flat rate LLM tuition fee of about $28,000. And I say flat rate because whether you're an in-state, out-of-state, or an international student, it is the same tuition price. Now for living expenses, that can be anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000, depending on a number of things. So one thing that can play a factor in that expense is where you want to live. Do you want to live on campus or further away? Do you want to live by yourself, or do you want to have up to 5 roommates? So that's all something to keep in mind when you are budgeting for the program. And lastly, I just wanted to say that all LLM applicants are automatically considered for merit-based scholarship based on their application submitted, which is convenient because you don't have to submit any supplemental information for merit-based aid. And the range that we typically award can be anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000. If you would like to find out a little bit more about Maryland Carey, or maybe you have a few questions about what I said, please feel free to join me in my Zoom room after this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vicki. It's been a pleasure working with everyone on this panel, and such wonderful law schools. I have good friends at all of them, so all top notch. So I really appreciate being invited here. So Vermont Law School, we are a tiny little law school. That's our town. We're settled in the Green Mountains in Vermont. And Vermont's about 2.5 hours north of Boston. And we are nationally known for our environmental law program. We have one of the top programs in the country. We offer over 50 environmental law and policy courses, and we have 5 environmental law clinics, including environmental justice, food and agriculture, energy. Most of our students that come internationally tend to come for the environmental program, and then they take that information and head back home. We're very deep in South America and China, France, so there's a lot of opportunities that we have in your home countries. We're also known for our restorative justice. We strive for the advancement of restorative justice principles and practices, and that's where we're focusing on a less punitive response to harm, and input by victims, accountabilities, and opportunities for people who cause harm to make amends. It's the other thing. We're a big advocacy school. My LLM programs I offer in environmental law, energy law, and food and agriculture law. I also offer an American Legal Studies, which is a 1-year program. It's a unique little law school in a unique little state, and we're the only law school in the state, so you really are grounded in the in our politics and the environment. So I'll pass it off. Mickey, do you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, great. I know we are coming up to the top of the hour. We have about 6 minutes though. If we want to answer some questions live, feel free to go ahead and type those in the Q&A here. I've also left the screen up so that you can see each of our names and contact information. I know, Samuel, you have pushed out the Zoom rooms to everybody as well. So if you prefer to have a private chat in the Zoom rooms after the presentation, you're certainly welcome to do so. But we've appreciated seeing your questions here. You guys are an engaged and educated audience. You're doing your homework, which is great. And we're happy to answer any other questions you might have. Looks like Maureen, there's a question about a Zoom room link requiring the ID number. So maybe you want to type that in there. Okay, which schools do accept Duolingo scores? So that at my school, Indiana University, it was a new option when the pandemic struck. So normally we just do the TOEFL and the IELTS that were presented in this presentation, as well as some language schools, ELS language centers, and then the program for intensive English on our campus. We do accept Duolingo scores as well. I'm not sure what the other schools here are doing. If you want to answer.
At UC Davis School of Law, we still accept TOEFL and IELTS, but we encourage you to, if you have difficulty taking any of those examinations, please get hold of us. Please let us know your situation, and we're happy to work with you.
We also began to accept the Duolingo in certain cases because of COVID. So that is an option right now.
We do as well. It's 2020, so we all have to have a lot of grace to get through this application period, both from applicants and institutions. We interview all of our candidates who pass through the first round of our application process because we want to make sure the right fit for us and vice versa. And so the interview process helps fill in some gaps that perhaps the English equivalency tests may not be able to tell us in this COVID environment.
And I would say that applies for a lot of things. Because of 2020, we all know that you are facing barriers that you have not faced before. Maybe your institution is still shut down and you can't get your transcripts from them, for example. I highly recommend that you reach out to the educational professionals that you see on this call, as well as any other institutions that you're interested in, and they will try to work with you. I know most of us are going above and beyond to help reduce barriers, and we might have some ideas or some contacts that could be useful. In addition, Education USA, who's hosting us tonight, they are a fabulous resource to help you brainstorm where you might be having problems with your application.
I did see a few questions that came up in the chat from a few different people about letters of reference. If someone's reference doesn't speak English, will your institutions allow them to translate the letter themselves, or do you accept a letter not in English? So I know that varies by institution to institution. Wondered if some of our colleagues wanted to talk on that.
So we always recommend using a professional translation service to get your letters of recommendation translated. Of course, they need to come in an official format. So if you open up the letter at home and you translate it, it's already unofficial. However, I do know that students have worked with professors in the past. We've also referred our students to language professors who are on our campus. We have a large university with a lot of different language professors. So there are ways, again, this is one of those barriers that if you need support, reach out to the institutions to find out what their policies are.
I'd echo that from our institution. And also, when you look at the translation cost, just view it as an investment in your application, because you'll spend a certain amount of money for this next juncture at your career, and you want to posit yourself in the most positive way possible. So it's probably worth the investment of time and what little money it will cost in order to do the application directly. But I'm sure I speak for all my colleagues in saying we get these kinds of questions directly all the time. So you should always reach out to your admissions offices of any school you're applying to with any questions, big or small, because we hear all of them, and it's important that you get the answers you need in the application process.
Okay, so I think there are no other questions at this point. Um, and so I want to make sure that everyone copied the link for the Zoom meetings that we're going to have after this presentation. And on behalf of Education USA, thank you so much for your time. There were a lot of people interested, and I'm positive you're going to have attendees in your Zoom meetings. So remember, Education USA for everyone is here to just also help you with any process of the application process, and just to talk to universities too. So thank you so much. I don't know if you have any further comment at this point.
I think that's it from us. So
Okay.
we will all head to the Zoom room. Thank you so much, Education USA. Thank you, students, for joining us on a Friday.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
all.
Goodbye.
See
Thank
you.
you, Education USA. Thank you, Mickey.
Goodbye.